How can a single moment at a company party lead to my marriage ending in front of everyone? What started as a playful comparison between my husband and my boss became the last straw, ending with legal papers in my hand and my husband's calm stare across the room. Can I still call him the villain if he was the one who did everything right? The champagne glass slipped from my fingers as the process server handed me divorce papers in front of my entire company's investor dinner. But let me start from the beginning, when I thought I was winning. The startup's holiday party was in full swing on the 20th floor rooftop, downtown lights twinkling below like scattered diamonds. I adjusted my red dress, the one that hugged every curve perfectly, and surveyed the crowd of my coworkers. This was my moment to shine. "Leira, you absolutely crushed the Morrison project," called out Jake from marketing, raising his beer toward me. "That client was ready to walk, and you turned it into our biggest deal this quarter." I felt the familiar rush of validation wash over me. This was what I lived for: the recognition, the applause, the acknowledgement that I was exceptional. At 32, I'd clawed my way up to senior project coordinator at TechFlow Solutions, and tonight felt like a celebration of everything I'd achieved. "She's our secret weapon," came a smooth voice behind me. I turned to see Damian, our founder and CEO, approaching with that confident smile that made half the office swoon. At 39, he had the kind of presence that commanded attention. Tall, sharp-featured, with silver threading through his dark hair that somehow made him look distinguished rather than old. "Damian, you're too kind," I said, though internally I was glowing. Having the boss's attention was intoxicating, especially when that boss was featured on magazine covers and tech podcasts. "I'm serious, Leira. The way you handled Morrison's concerns about timeline and budget, pure genius. You didn't just save a deal, you turned a skeptic into an evangelist." His hand briefly touched my shoulder, and I felt electricity shoot through me. That's when I noticed Owen standing near the appetizer table, looking uncomfortable in his navy blazer. My husband of 8 years had agreed to come tonight, though I knew company parties weren't his thing. As a high school English teacher, he preferred quiet evenings with books to networking events with tech entrepreneurs. "Owen," I called out, waving him over, "come meet everyone properly." He approached slowly, that familiar reserved smile on his face. Owen was handsome in a quiet way, brown hair always slightly messy, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the sort of man who looked like he belonged in a cozy library rather than a sleek startup office. "Everyone, this is my husband Owen," I announced to the group that had gathered around us. "Owen, you know Damian, and this is Jake, Sarah from design, Marcus from development." Owen nodded politely, shaking hands. "Nice to meet you all. Leira talks about work constantly." "All good things, I hope," Damian said with a laugh. "Mostly," Owen replied, and I caught something in his tone that made me glance at him sharply. "Owen's being modest," I said quickly. "He's incredibly supportive of my career." Sarah from design leaned in. "Leira, we were just talking about how you totally owned that presentation last week. The way you shut down Peterson's ridiculous questions was legendary." "She's fearless," agreed Marcus. "I would have crumbled under that kind of pressure." I felt myself glowing again. This was exactly the kind of recognition I craved. "You just have to know your stuff and stand your ground," I said. "Confidence is everything in this business." "Absolutely," Damian said, moving closer. "Leira has this incredible ability to read a room and adapt her approach. She's going to go far in this industry." I noticed Owen shift slightly beside me, but I was too caught up in the moment to pay much attention. "Speaking of going far," Jake said, grinning mischievously, "didn't you two have that moment during the Morrison celebration, when the deal closed?" My cheeks flushed. A week ago, when we'd successfully landed the Morrison account, Damian had been so excited that he'd swept me into a congratulatory hug that lasted a bit too long. The office had erupted in cheers, and in the euphoria of the moment, there had been a brief, celebratory kiss on the lips. Nothing serious, just excitement and adrenaline. That was just celebration, I said, though I was smiling. Pure professional excitement. It was pretty cute, Sarah added, like something out of a movie. I glanced at Owen, who was staring into his drink. It's not like that, I said, though part of me enjoyed the implication. Damian and I just work really well together. The best partnerships often do blur lines, Damian said with a wink that made my stomach flutter. Well, I said, emboldened by the attention and maybe the 2 glasses of wine I'd had. At least Damian knows how to celebrate wins properly. The words came out before I could stop them. The group laughed, but I immediately felt Owen stiffen beside me. The comment had been meant as a playful jab. Owen was always so reserved about celebrating achievements, but I could see from his expression that it had landed wrong. I mean, I added quickly, Owen celebrates differently, more quietly. But the damage was done. Owen's face had gone carefully blank, the way it did when he was hurt but trying not to show it. The group continued chatting, but I could feel the tension radiating from my husband. Actually, Damian said, seemingly oblivious to the awkwardness, I think we should recreate that celebration moment, for the team morale. Before I could respond, he pulled me closer and kissed me again, right there in front of everyone. It was brief, but unmistakably more than professional. The crowd whooped and cheered, phones came out to capture the moment, and I found myself laughing and playing to the audience. When I finally looked for Owen, he was walking toward the elevator. Where's he going? Sarah asked. Bathroom, probably, I said, though my stomach was starting to churn. He's not big on crowds. But 20 minutes later, Owen still hadn't returned, and when I checked my phone, I had a text. Took an Uber home. See you later. The party continued around me, everyone congratulating me on the Morrison deal and joking about my work chemistry with Damian. I posted the video of the kiss on my Instagram story with the caption, When your boss appreciates your hard work, ash blessed tasa teamwork, ash success. Within an hour, it had dozens of views and comments. Power couple, wrote my friend Marina. Get it, girl, added my cousin Beth. The validation felt incredible, but during the Uber ride home, my phone stayed silent. No text from Owen, no calls, just the city lights streaming past the window and a growing knot in my stomach that I tried to ignore. When I got to our apartment, Owen was already in bed, facing away from me. I slipped into the bathroom to change, expecting him to ask about the rest of the party or at least acknowledge that I was home. Instead, I was met with silence. Owen, I whispered. Are you awake? No response, but I could tell from his breathing that he wasn't asleep. I climbed into bed, my mind replaying the evening. The kiss, the laughter, the attention. It had all felt so good in the moment. But now, lying in the dark next to my silent husband, I felt the first stirrings of unease. Still, I told myself, Owen was just being sensitive. He'd never understood the startup world, the way relationships worked in high-pressure environments. Tomorrow, when he'd had time to think about it, he'd see that it was all harmless professional celebration. I fell asleep to the sound of my phone buzzing with more notifications from my viral moment, trying to ignore the cold space between Owen and me in our king-sized bed. I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Owen moving around the kitchen. For a moment, I felt relieved. Maybe he'd gotten over whatever had bothered him last night. Maybe we could laugh about it over breakfast. But when I padded into the kitchen in my silk pajamas, Owen barely glanced up from his laptop. Morning, I said brightly, pouring myself coffee from the pot he'd made. Morning, he replied, not looking away from his screen. I peered over his shoulder. He was grading essays, red pen marks scattered across student papers. Busy weekend ahead? Always. His voice was flat, professional, like he was talking to a stranger. Owen, about last night? I need to get these papers graded, he interrupted, closing the laptop and standing up. I'm going to the library. He was gone before I could say another word, leaving me standing in our kitchen with my coffee growing cold. I spent the morning scrolling through social media, basking in the continued attention from the party video. My Instagram story had over 200 views now, and the comments kept coming. Marina had shared it to her own story with fire emojis. Even my mother had liked it, though she hadn't commented. Around noon, my phone rang. Mum. "Hi, sweetheart," came Helena's voice, careful and measured in that way that meant she was choosing her words carefully. "I saw your post from last night." "The party was amazing, Mom. The whole team was there, and Damian gave this incredible speech about our Q4 numbers. Leira." My mother's voice cut through my enthusiasm. "I'm concerned about that video." I felt my defenses rise immediately. "What do you mean?" "Honey, you're a married woman. Kissing your boss in front of your husband, that's not appropriate." "It was just celebration, Mom. It's not like that. You don't understand how things work in the startup world. We're like family here." There was a long pause. "Where was Owen when I called? I'd like to talk to him." "He's at the library, grading papers." Another pause. "On a Saturday morning? Didn't he just get home from your party?" I felt irritation flare. "He likes to stay on top of his work. Not everyone can be spontaneous." "Leira, listen to me carefully. I've been married to your father for 35 years. What I saw in that video, that wasn't professional celebration. And the way you spoke about Owen in front of your coworkers, honey, you're playing with fire." "You're being dramatic, Mom. Owen's just being sensitive because he doesn't understand my work environment. He'll get over it." "Will he?" The question hung in the air. "Sweetie, don't confuse applause with love. The people cheering for you at work, they go home to their own lives. Owen is the one who chose to build a life with you." After we hung up, I felt unsettled. My mother had always been supportive of my career, but she'd sounded genuinely worried. I tried to shake off her concerns. She was from a different generation, one where women were expected to make themselves smaller for their husband's comfort. I wasn't going to do that. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "Girl, that video is everything. You looked like a total boss babe. Coffee later." That afternoon, Marina and I met at our usual spot downtown. She was practically bouncing with excitement. "Okay, I need all the details," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "That kiss looked intense. Is there something happening with you and the hot CEO?" "It's not like that," I said, though I felt a flutter of excitement at the question. "Damian and I just have great professional chemistry. We work really well together." "Professional chemistry," Marina repeated with a knowing smirk. "Right, and how did Owen handle watching his wife kiss another man in front of a crowd?" I shifted uncomfortably. "He left early. He's not big on parties." "Leira." Marina leaned forward, her expression growing serious. "Can I be real with you for a minute?" I nodded. "You've been with Owen since college. You were practically kids when you got together. And now you're this successful, powerful woman working with brilliant, ambitious people. Don't you think you might have outgrown him?" The words hit something deep in my chest. "What do you mean?" "I mean, look at your life. You're closing six-figure deals, getting recognized by industry leaders, building something incredible. And Owen is grading high school essays and going to bed at 10 p.m. When's the last time he really celebrated your success? When's the last time he made you feel as excited as you looked in that video?" I thought about it. Owen had congratulated me on the Morrison deal, but quietly, privately. He'd never made a big show of my achievements the way Damian did. "I'm not saying you should leave him," Marina continued, "but maybe it's time to stop dimming your light to make him comfortable. You deserve someone who matches your energy." When I got home that evening, Owen was in his study, papers spread across his desk. I knocked on the doorframe. "How was grading?" "Fine." He didn't look up. "Owen, we need to talk about last night." He finally raised his eyes to meet mine, and I was struck by how tired he looked. What about it? You're upset about the kiss. I get that, but it really was just professional excitement. Damian and I work closely together, and when we landed the Morrison deal, emotions were running high. It didn't mean anything. Owen stared at me for a long moment. Leira, you compared me to your boss in front of your coworkers. You made me look like I don't support your success. That's not what I meant. You said he knows how to celebrate wins properly, in front of everyone. What was I supposed to think? I felt my frustration building. You're taking it too personally. I just meant that you're more reserved about celebrating. There's nothing wrong with that, but Damian understands the startup environment better. So I'm the problem because I don't kiss my coworkers when we accomplish something. That's not what I'm saying. My voice was rising. You're being deliberately obtuse. You know I didn't mean anything by it. Owen turned back to his papers. I think you meant exactly what you said. That night, we went to bed without resolving anything. Owen turned away from me again, and I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying Marina's words. Maybe she was right. Maybe Owen and I had grown in different directions. Over the next few days, the distance between us grew. Owen left early for work and came home late. When he was home, he was polite but distant, like a roommate rather than a husband. He stopped asking about my day, stopped sharing stories from his classroom. I threw myself into work, staying late to collaborate with Damian on new projects. We had a natural rhythm together, finishing each other's thoughts, building on each other's ideas. When we worked late, he'd order dinner for the team, and we'd eat in his office, talking about business strategy and industry trends. You have incredible instincts, he told me one evening as we reviewed client proposals. Most people your age don't have this kind of strategic thinking. I've always been ambitious, I said, feeling that familiar warm glow of his approval. It shows. You're going places, Leira. Don't let anyone hold you back. The comment felt loaded with meaning, though I couldn't be sure if I was reading too much into it. Meanwhile, at home, the silence grew heavier. Our 6-year-old daughter Eva started asking why Daddy was so quiet lately. Is Daddy sad? She asked one morning over breakfast. Her dark eyes, so much like Owen's, filled with concern. Daddy's just busy with work, sweetheart, I said, though Owen was sitting right there, eating his cereal in silence. Eva nodded, but I noticed her drawing that afternoon showed our family with Daddy, coloured in grey, while everyone else was bright colours. That weekend, we had dinner at my parents' house. The conversation was stilted, with Owen contributing only when directly asked a question. My father, Alan, tried to fill the awkward silences with stories about his golf game, but even his usually reliable chatter couldn't mask the tension. Owen, how are your students doing this semester? My mother asked, clearly trying to draw him into conversation. They're good, working on their final projects now. What's the assignment? Personal narrative essays. They're writing about pivotal moments in their lives. That sounds fascinating. What kinds of stories are they telling? For the first time in days, Owen's face showed some animation. Some really powerful stuff. One student wrote about the moment she realized her parents were getting divorced. Another wrote about standing up to a bully. They're learning that the most important moments are often the ones that show us who we really are. I felt something twist in my stomach at his words, but I pushed the feeling away. Later, as we drove home, I tried to break the silence. You seemed more like yourself at dinner. Did I? When you were talking about your students, you lit up. I care about my work. I know you do. I care about mine too. Owen was quiet for several blocks. Then, Leira, when did we stop being on the same team? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? We used to celebrate each other's wins. Now it feels like we're competing. We're not competing. We just have different career paths. It's not about careers. He pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. It's about respect. Before I could respond, he was out of the car and heading into the house. That night, I found myself scrolling through work emails, including several from Damian about upcoming projects. His messages were always encouraging, always making me feel valued and important. Your insights on the Peterson proposal were brilliant. Dinner tomorrow to discuss strategy? I typed back, absolutely. Looking forward to it. As I hit send, I glanced over at Owen, already asleep on his side of the bed. We used to talk for hours before falling asleep, sharing our days, making plans, laughing about silly things. Now we were like strangers, sharing a space. Maybe Marina was right. Maybe I had outgrown this. The dinner with Damian was supposed to be about the Peterson proposal, but we barely talked business. Instead, we found ourselves at an intimate wine bar downtown, discussing everything from industry trends to personal philosophy. Damian was fascinating, well-traveled, well-read, with stories about building companies and taking risks that made my pulse quicken. "You know what I admire about you, Leira," he said, leaning closer across the small table. "You're not afraid to want more. Too many people settle for comfortable mediocrity." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. I've always believed in pushing boundaries. It shows. You have this energy, this hunger for success that's rare. Most people get comfortable and stop growing. The way he looked at me made me feel electric, alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. When he walked me to my car, he kissed my cheek goodnight, but his lips lingered a moment too long, and his hand touched the small of my back in a way that definitely wasn't professional. I drove home with my heart racing, telling myself it was just the excitement of working with someone who truly understood ambition. Owen was asleep when I got home, or pretending to be. I slipped into bed, my mind replaying every moment of the evening. Damian's attention, his praise, the way he made me feel like I was capable of anything, it was intoxicating. The next morning brought our company's quarterly celebration party. Another rooftop event, another chance for the team to unwind and celebrate our successes. I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a black dress that was professional but flattering. "You look nice," Owen said as I applied my lipstick. "Special occasion?" "Quarterly party. I told you about it." "Right." He was putting on his own clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt that screamed high school teacher. "Do you want me to come?" The question surprised me. After the disaster of the last party, I'd assumed he wouldn't want to attend another work event. "If you want to," I said, though part of me had been looking forward to an evening without having to worry about his comfort level. "I'll come. Maybe I can do better at celebrating your wins properly this time." There was something in his tone, not quite sarcasm but close, that made me look at him more carefully. But his expression was neutral, unreadable. The party was in full swing when we arrived. The team was excited about our quarterly numbers, and there was talk of expansion, new hires, bigger projects. I felt energized just being in the room, surrounded by ambition and success. "Leira," called Jake from across the room. "Get over here. Damian's telling the Peterson story." I made my way over to where Damian was holding court, Owen following behind me. Damian was recounting how we'd won the Peterson account, making me sound like a strategic genius. And then Leira said, "What if we're solving the wrong problem?" and completely reframed the entire proposal. Peterson went from skeptical to sold in 10 minutes. The group laughed and applauded. I felt that familiar rush of recognition and approval. "She's our secret weapon," Damian continued, his eyes finding mine across the circle. "Brilliant, fearless, and absolutely relentless when she sets her mind on something." "Here, here," called Sarah, raising her glass. "To Leira." The group toasted, and I felt myself glowing. This was what I lived for, being seen, being valued, being recognized for my contributions. "Speech," called Marcus. "Come on, Leira, tell us how you did it." I laughed, but found myself moving to the center of the group. It wasn't just me. Damian and I work really well together. We push each other to think bigger, take more risks. "The dream team," shouted Jake, and others joined in with cheers and applause. I glanced at Owen, standing at the edge of the circle. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You know what we need?" called Sarah, clearly several drinks in. "A repeat of last party's celebration kiss, for good luck on the Peterson project." The suggestion was taken up by others, and suddenly the whole group was chanting for it. I felt my cheeks flush, but also felt that electric excitement building. "Come on," Damian said, approaching me with that confident smile. "For team morale." Before I could think too hard about it, his arms were around me and we were kissing again. But this time, it wasn't brief. This time, his hand was in my hair, and I found myself kissing back with real passion. The crowd erupted in cheers and whistles. Phones came out to capture the moment. And for those few seconds, I felt like I was starring in my own success story. When we broke apart, I was breathless and grinning. The attention, the approval, the feeling of being desired and celebrated, it was overwhelming in the best way. That's when I noticed Owen was gone. "Where did Owen go?" I asked Jake, who was standing nearby. "Think he left. Saw him heading for the elevator a few minutes ago." My phone buzzed with a text. "Taking a cab home. Enjoy your celebration." This time there was no ambiguity in his message. He was angry, but I was surrounded by colleagues congratulating me, Damian's arm still around my waist, and the energy of success and recognition. I decided to deal with Owen later. "Let's get another round," I called out, and the party continued. I posted the new kiss video immediately, this time with the caption, "When you and your boss are perfectly in sync, Tauger Dream Team Hashtag's success are blessed." The likes and comments poured in faster than before. Marina responded within minutes. "Girl, this is everything. You two are fire together." Other comments followed. "Power couple." "Get it." "Boss babe energy." But mixed in with the praise, I started noticing other types of comments. Isn't she married? This seems inappropriate. Feel bad for her husband." I deleted the negative comments quickly, but they kept coming. The party wound down around midnight, and Damian offered to drive me home. "Are you sure?" I asked. "It's out of your way." "I want to make sure you get home safely," he said, his hand touching my elbow in that way that made my skin tingle. In his car, the atmosphere felt charged. We talked about work, but underneath was a current of something else. "You were incredible tonight," he said as we sat in traffic. "The way you command a room, it's magnetic." "I love what I do. I love working with people who understand ambition." "Not everyone does understand it," he said, and I knew he was thinking about Owen. "Some people are threatened by success, by growth. They want to keep you small and safe." "I'm not interested in small and safe," I said, the words coming out more loaded than I'd intended. When we reached my building, he walked me to the door. "Thank you for tonight," I said, "for making me feel valued." "You are valued, Leira. Don't ever forget that." He kissed me goodnight, and this time there was no pretense of professional celebration. This was a real kiss, full of promise and possibility. I floated up to my apartment, still buzzing from the evening. But when I opened the door, reality crashed back down. Owen was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, papers spread around him. He looked up when I entered, and his expression was completely calm. "How was the rest of the party?" he asked, as if we were casual acquaintances making small talk. "Fine, good. The team was excited about our numbers." "I'm sure they were." He turned back to his laptop. "I've been doing some thinking while you were out." Something in his tone made my stomach clench. "About what?" "About us. About what we want. About whether we're still compatible." I felt panic rise in my throat. "Owen, if this is about tonight..." "It's not about tonight specifically. It's about a pattern." He gestured to his laptop screen, and I could see he had spreadsheets open. "I've been tracking some things, financial records, schedules, communication patterns." "Tracking things? What are you talking about?" "When did you start working late 3 nights a week? When did we stop having dinner together? When did you stop asking about my day or telling me about yours, really telling me, not just the highlight reel? I stared at him. This calm, analytical Owen was somehow more unsettling than if he'd been yelling. I work hard, Owen. I'm building something important. I know you are, and I've been supportive of that. But somewhere along the way, our marriage became something you fit in around your real priorities. That's not true. Leira, you kissed another man in front of me tonight, again. And when I left, you didn't follow me. You didn't text to check if I was okay. You stayed and celebrated. I felt my defenses rising. It was a work celebration. You're making it sound like something it wasn't. What was it then? Help me understand. I struggled for words. It was team building, professional excitement. You wouldn't understand because you don't work in this environment. Owen nodded slowly. You're right, I don't understand. I don't understand how a married woman justifies kissing her boss repeatedly in public. I don't understand how someone who claims to love me can humiliate me in front of strangers and then act like I'm the problem for being hurt. I never meant to humiliate you. But you did, and you don't seem to care that you did. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, and I felt like we were speaking different languages. What do you want from me, Owen? I want you to choose, us or whatever this is with your boss, because you can't have both. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. Part of me wanted to choose him, choose us, choose the safe and familiar life we'd built. But another part of me, the part that had felt so alive tonight, rebelled against the idea of giving up what I'd found with Damian. I need time to think, I said finally. Owen nodded, closing his laptop. Take all the time you need. I'll be sleeping in the guest room. As he walked away, I felt like something fundamental had shifted between us. We'd crossed a line tonight, and I wasn't sure there was any going back. I lay awake until dawn, replaying the evening, thinking about Damian's kiss, Owen's ultimatum, and the choice I knew I was going to have to make. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. My Aunt Yelena stood at our door at 9 a.m., holding a box of pastries and wearing the expression that meant business. We need to talk, she announced, pushing past me into the apartment. Yelena was my mother's sister, 54 years old and never one to mince words. She'd been divorced twice and had strong opinions about marriage, fidelity, and foolish women who don't know what they have. Where's Owen? She asked, setting the pastries on our kitchen counter. Guest room, I said, immediately regretting the admission. Yelena's eyebrows shot up. Guest room? On a Sunday morning? After your little performance last night? How do you know about last night? She pulled out her phone and showed me my own Instagram story. Your cousin Beth shared this in the family group chat at midnight. We've all seen it, Leira. My stomach dropped. I'd forgotten about the family group chat, the one where my extended family shared updates and photos. It's not what it looks like. It looks like you're kissing your boss while your husband watches. What exactly should it look like? Before I could answer, Owen emerged from the guest room, fully dressed despite the early hour. He looked surprised to see Yelena, but not displeased. Owen, honey, Yelena said, her voice gentling immediately. How are you holding up? I'm fine, Yelena. Thank you for asking. No, you're not fine. No man should have to watch his wife carry on like that in public. I felt heat rise in my face. Aunt Yelena, you don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You're acting like a fool, and you're humiliating your husband in the process. It's okay, Yelena, Owen said quietly. Leira's made her priorities clear. Have I? I snapped, my patience finally breaking. Because last I checked, I'm building a career, contributing to our household income, and trying to make something of myself. I'm sorry if that makes you uncomfortable, but I'm not going to apologize for being successful. Success? Yelena laughed harshly. Honey, success is building something that lasts. Success is having people who love you and respect you. What you're doing is chasing applause from strangers while destroying your marriage. My marriage was already in trouble, because you put it there. Yelena's voice rose. You think I don't know what it's like to want more? I've been married twice, remember? The first time, I thought my husband was holding me back from my dreams, so I chased those dreams right into the arms of another man. You know what I got? A messy divorce, 2 years of drama, and the realization that I'd thrown away something real for something shiny and temporary. I looked at Owen, who was listening to this exchange with that same calm expression he'd worn last night. Owen, Yelena continued, why don't you take Eva to the park? Let me talk to my niece alone. Owen nodded, calling for our daughter. Eva appeared in her pajamas, hair messy from sleep. Daddy, are we going to the park? Get dressed, sweetheart. We'll go feed the ducks. As they prepared to leave, I watched Eva chattering excitedly to Owen about the ducks and the playground. She adored her father, and he was completely present with her in a way that made my chest ache. When they were gone, Yelena turned back to me. Sit down, she said, and her voice was no longer angry, just tired. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, where Owen had given me his ultimatum the night before. Leira, I love you. You're smart, ambitious, and you deserve good things, but you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life. How can you say that? You don't know Damian. You don't know what we have. I know he's your boss. I know he's got you convinced that kissing him in public is somehow professional. And I know that while you're playing these games, you've got a good man at home who's raising your daughter and trying to hold your family together. Owen doesn't understand my world. Owen doesn't have to understand your world. He just has to love you. And he does, even though you're making it very hard for him right now. I felt tears prick my eyes. It's complicated, Aunt Yelena. You don't know how it feels to finally be seen, to be valued for what you can do. Oh, honey. Yelena reached across the table and took my hand. I know exactly how that feels. But let me ask you something. When this boss of yours goes home at night, who's there? When he's sick, who takes care of him? When he's scared or sad, or needs someone to just sit with him in silence? I don't know, that's not the point. It's exactly the point. You're confusing professional attention with love. You're mistaking workplace chemistry for a real relationship, and you're about to lose your family for a man who sees you as an asset, not a person. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear children playing in the courtyard, normal family sounds that seemed to belong to a different world. What if Owen and I have just grown apart? I asked finally. What if we want different things now? Then you work on it. You talk about it. You go to counseling. You don't blow up your marriage for your boss. It's not just about Damian, isn't it? Yelena's voice was gentle but pointed. Leira, when's the last time you and Owen went on a date? When's the last time you asked him about his dreams, his goals, his day? When's the last time you made him feel like he mattered to you? I tried to think but couldn't come up with a recent example. When had we stopped really talking? When had we become roommates instead of partners? Marriage takes work, Yelena continued. The butterflies and excitement. That's not love, that's infatuation. Love is choosing someone every day, even when they are not shiny and new, even when they don't make you feel like a star. When Owen and Eva returned from the park, Eva was full of stories about the ducks and the other children she'd played with. Owen helped her wash her hands while she chatted, and I watched them together. Really watched them. Owen was a good father, patient, attentive, present. He listened to Eva's rambling stories with genuine interest, asked follow-up questions, made her feel heard and important. When had I stopped appreciating that about him? That afternoon, we had lunch at my parents' house, a standing Sunday tradition that I'd been too busy to attend for the past month. The whole family was there. My parents, Yelena, my cousin Beth with her husband and kids. The elephant in the room was obvious from the moment we walked in. Everyone had seen the video. Everyone knew Owen had slept in the guest room. The conversation was stilted, careful, with too many meaningful glances and awkward silences. So, Leira, my father said, clearly trying to lighten the mood, how's work going? Still enjoying the startup life? It's great, Dad. Really challenging and rewarding. That's wonderful, sweetheart. And Owen, how are your students doing? Good. We're finishing up the semester. They're working on their final essays. What's the topic this year? My mother asked. Moments of truth, Owen said. I asked them to write about a time when they had to choose between what was easy and what was right. The comment felt pointed, though Owen's expression remained neutral. That sounds like a powerful assignment, Beth said. What kinds of things are they writing about? All sorts of things. Standing up to bullies, telling the truth when it's hard, choosing to do the right thing even when no one's watching. Important lessons, my father agreed. Character building. I felt like everyone was speaking in code, delivering messages meant for me. The weight of their judgment was suffocating. Ava, sweetheart, my mother said, why don't you show everyone the picture you drew yesterday? Eva brightened, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. It was another family drawing, but this one was different from the grey daddy picture she'd drawn before. This time, Owen was standing apart from the rest of us, and there was a literal distance drawn between him and Eva and me. Tell us about your picture, honey, my mother prompted gently. That's Mommy and Daddy and me, Eva said, pointing to each figure. But Daddy's sad, so he's standing over there by himself. The table fell silent. Eva continued colouring with her crayons, oblivious to the impact of her words. Why is Daddy sad in your picture? Beth asked carefully. Eva shrugged. He's always sad now, and he sleeps in the other room. Mommy says he's busy with work, but I think he's sad about something else. I felt every eye at the table turn to me. The judgment was no longer subtle. Ava, I said, my voice strained, Daddy's not sad. He's just tired from working hard. No, Eva said with the brutal honesty of a 6-year-old. He's sad, I can tell. And you're always on your phone now, Mummy. You don't listen when I tell you about school. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Was that true? Had I been so absorbed in work, in Damian, in my own ambitions that I'd been neglecting my daughter too? After lunch, as we prepared to leave, my mother pulled me aside. Leira, I'm worried about you. Mum, please don't start. Listen to me. I've watched you grow into a strong, successful woman, and I'm proud of you. But success means nothing if you lose your family in the process. I'm not losing my family. Look at your daughter's drawing. Look at your husband's face. You're losing them right now, and you're so caught up in this fantasy with your boss that you can't see it. That night, after Eva was in bed, I found Owen in his study, grading papers. I knocked on the door frame. Can we talk? He looked up, and I was struck again by how tired he looked. When had those lines appeared around his eyes? About what? About Eva's drawing. About what she said at lunch. Owen set down his pen. What about it? Is it true that I don't listen to her anymore? You tell me, Leira, when's the last time you helped her with homework? When's the last time you read her a bedtime story or asked about her day without checking your phone? I tried to think and came up empty. I've been busy with work. You've been busy with Damian. The name hung between us like an accusation. It's not what you think. What do I think, Leira? Tell me what I think. You think I'm having an affair. Are you? The question was so direct, so calm, that it caught me off guard. No, I mean, it's complicated. It's not complicated. Either you're faithful to your marriage or you're not. Either you're committed to this family or you're not. I stared at him, this man I'd known for over a decade, and realized I didn't know how to answer that question anymore. I don't know, I said finally. Owen nodded, as if my answer confirmed something he'd already suspected. Then I think we both know where this is heading. Monday morning brought a crisis at work that demanded all of my attention. The Peterson deal, which we'd celebrated so enthusiastically, was falling apart. Peterson's team had discovered some technical issues with our proposed solution, and they were threatening to walk unless we could fix everything within the week. This is a disaster, Jake said, pacing around the conference room. If we lose Peterson, our Q4 numbers are shot. Damian remained calm, but I could see the tension in his jaw. We're not losing Peterson. Leira, you've worked most closely with their team. What do you think? All eyes turned to me, and I felt that familiar rush of being needed, being essential. I think we can fix this. Their concerns are valid, but they're not insurmountable. We need to rebuild the technical architecture and present a new timeline. How long? Damian asked. If we work around the clock? 4 days, maybe 5. Then that's what we do. Leira, I'm putting you in charge of the recovery effort. Whatever you need, whoever you need, it's yours. The next 4 days were a blur of 18-hour workdays, emergency meetings, and high-pressure problem-solving. Damian and I worked side by side, ordering dinner to the office, staying until midnight, coming in early the next morning. It was intense, exhausting, and exhilarating. You're incredible under pressure, Damian told me on Wednesday night as we reviewed the revised proposal for the 100th time. We were alone in his office, the rest of the team having gone home hours ago. I thrive on it, I admitted. This is what I live for. I can tell, you're in your element. He moved closer, ostensibly to look at my laptop screen, but I could feel the heat from his body. We make a good team. The best, I agreed. And when I looked up, his face was inches from mine. This time, when he kissed me, there was no crowd to cheer, no professional celebration to justify it. It was just us, alone in his office, crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I kissed him back with all the passion and excitement that had been building for weeks. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Leira, he said, his voice rough, you know this changes things. I know. Your husband... My marriage is already over, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. It has been for a while. We're just going through the motions. It wasn't entirely true, but it felt true in that moment. Owen and I had been like strangers for weeks. We barely spoke, barely looked at each other. How was that a marriage worth saving? Damian's hands cupped my face. Are you sure? I'm sure. We didn't sleep together that night, but we came close. Close enough that when I finally went home at 2 a.m., I felt like I'd already cheated. Close enough that I couldn't look Owen in the eye the next morning. Thursday brought the Peterson presentation. Our entire team had worked around the clock to rebuild the proposal, and I was confident we'd address their concerns. But as I stood in the conference room, preparing to present to Peterson's executives, I felt the weight of everything that had led to this moment. The presentation went perfectly. Peterson's team was impressed with our quick turnaround and comprehensive solutions. By the end of the meeting, they were ready to sign an expanded contract worth even more than the original deal. Outstanding work, Peterson himself told me as the meeting concluded. You've turned a potential disaster into our best partnership yet. The team erupted in celebration back at the office. Champagne appeared from somewhere, and everyone was congratulating each other on the save. Speech, someone called, and the crowd turned to me expectantly. I found myself in the center of the group again, basking in their attention and approval. This is what happens when a team refuses to give up, I said, raising my champagne glass. When we push ourselves beyond what we thought was possible. To Leira, Damian called out, raising his own glass. Our fearless leader. The toast was echoed around the room, and I felt that familiar rush of validation and success. This was my moment, my triumph. That's when I noticed Owen standing near the elevator. I hadn't expected him to come. We'd barely spoken in days, and he'd never shown up at work events unannounced. But there he was, wearing his good suit and holding a small bouquet of flowers. Owen, I called out, surprised. What are you doing here? He approached the group, and I could see everyone watching curiously. I heard about the Peterson save. I wanted to congratulate you. He handed me the flowers. Daisy's my favorite, though I couldn't remember the last time he'd brought me any. That's so sweet, Sarah said. Owen, you should stay for the celebration. Yes, stay, others chimed in. Have a drink. Owen accepted a glass of champagne, and for a moment, I thought maybe this was a peace offering. Maybe he was trying to understand my world, to be part of my success. Tell us about Leira at home, Jake said, grinning. Is she always this intense? She's very dedicated, Owen said carefully. When she sets her mind on something, she doesn't give up. That's our Leira, Damian said, moving to stand beside me. His hand found the small of my back, and I felt Owen's eyes track the movement. You know, Marcus said, clearly several drinks in, we were just saying that Leira and Damian are like the dream team. Perfect professional chemistry. Is that right? Owen's voice was perfectly neutral. Oh yeah, Sarah agreed. They finish each other's sentences, anticipate each other's moves. It's like they're telepathically connected or something. I felt the situation spiraling, but I was caught between two worlds, the professional triumph I wanted to celebrate and the personal reckoning I wasn't ready for. We do work well together, I said carefully. Work, Damian said with a smile that felt loaded with meaning. Among other things. The comment hung in the air, and I saw Owen's expression shift almost imperceptibly. Actually, Owen said, setting down his champagne glass, I should go. I just wanted to congratulate Leira on her success. Don't go yet, Jake protested. The night is young. I have papers to grade, Owen said. Congratulations again, Leira. You've certainly found your element. There was something in the way he said it that made my stomach clench, but before I could respond, he was walking toward the elevator. Owen, wait. I started to follow him, but Damian's hand on my arm stopped me. Let him go, he said quietly. This is your night. Don't let anyone diminish it. I watched the elevator doors close on my husband's retreating figure and felt like I was watching something else close too. But I was surrounded by colleagues celebrating my success, Damian's arm around my waist, and the intoxicating rush of professional triumph. More champagne, someone called, and the party continued. I posted a photo from the celebration on Instagram. When your team pulls off the impossible. So grateful to work with people who push each other to be better. Blessed should your dream team share your success. The likes and comments poured in immediately. Marina, you're absolutely glowing. Success looks amazing on you. My cousin Beth, get it, girl. Even some of my coworkers commented with fire emojis and congratulations. But mixed in with the praise, I noticed more of those other comments. Where's your husband? This seems inappropriate for a married woman. Feel sorry for that teacher guy. I deleted them as quickly as they appeared, but they kept coming. The party moved to a nearby bar, and then to another one. By the time I got home, it was nearly 3 a.m., and I was drunk on champagne and victory. Owen's bedroom door was closed, and I could see light underneath. He was probably grading papers or reading. I stood outside his door for a long moment, my hand raised to knock. Part of me wanted to tell him about the presentation, about how we'd saved the Peterson deal, about the recognition and praise. Part of me wanted to share my triumph with the person who used to be my biggest supporter. But I could also still feel Damian's hands on my waist, could still taste his kiss from the night before. I was living in two different worlds now, and they were becoming impossible to reconcile. Instead of knocking, I went to our bedroom, my bedroom now, really, and fell asleep alone, my phone still buzzing with notifications from my viral success story. I woke up Friday morning to the sound of Owen moving around the apartment earlier than usual. When I stumbled to the kitchen for coffee, I found him packing a bag. Going somewhere? I asked. My brother's house for the weekend. Oh. I tried to remember if he'd mentioned this before, but my memory was fuzzy from the champagne. Family thing. Something like that. He zipped up his bag and turned to face me. Eva's going to stay with your parents. Both of you are leaving? I thought you might want some space, to figure things out. There was something final in his tone that made my stomach drop. Owen, what are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of pretending everything is normal when it's not. I'm tired of being the only one fighting for this marriage. I'm not fighting. Leira, you kissed another man in front of me, multiple times. You work late with him. You light up when you talk about him. You've essentially moved him into the space I used to occupy in your life. That's not true. Isn't it? He picked up his bag. When's the last time you asked about my day? When's the last time you seemed happy to see me? When's the last time you chose me over him? I stared at him, unable to answer. That's what I thought. He headed toward the door. I'll be back Sunday night. Maybe by then you'll have decided what you actually want. After he left, the apartment felt strange and empty. I'd been craving space from Owen's judgment and disapproval, but now that I had it, I felt unmoored. I spent the day at work, catching up on projects that had been neglected during the Peterson crisis. Damian stopped by my desk in the afternoon. How are you feeling? Yesterday was intense. Good. Tired, but good. You were incredible. I meant what I said about you being fearless. He perched on the edge of my desk, and I was acutely aware that we were alone in this section of the office. Damian, about Wednesday night. No regrets, he said firmly. I meant every moment of it. It's complicated. My marriage. Your marriage is over, Leira. You said so yourself. The question is what you want to do about it. That evening, Marina called to invite me out for drinks. Girls' night, she said. You've been working so hard, you deserve to celebrate. We met at an upscale wine bar downtown, and Marina was full of excitement about my recent successes. I've been following your posts, she said, raising her wine glass. You are absolutely killing it. The Peterson save, the recognition from your boss. You're like a total boss babe right now. It's been a good week, I agreed, though I felt strangely hollow saying it. And how are things with Owen? Still giving you grief about your work relationship? I told her about our conversation that morning, about him leaving for the weekend. Good, Marina said firmly. Maybe some space will help him realize what he's been taking for granted. Do you really think so? Leira, look at yourself. You're successful, beautiful, ambitious, and you've got this incredible man at work who clearly adores you. Owen should be grateful to have you, not trying to hold you back. But what if I'm making a mistake? What if I'm throwing away something good for something that might not last? Marina leaned forward. Honey, you can't live your life based on fear. Sometimes you have to take risks to get what you really want. And what you want is pretty obvious. That night, alone in my apartment, I found myself looking through old photos on my phone. Pictures of Owen and me from our early dating days, from our wedding, from family vacations. In all of them, we looked happy, connected, like we belonged together. But when I tried to remember the last time we'd looked at each other that way, I came up empty. My phone buzzed with a text from Damian. Thinking about you. Hope you're having a good evening. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. You too. Another buzz. Dinner tomorrow night. I know a place. This was it, the moment of choice that Owen had been talking about. I could say no, could try to rebuild my marriage, could choose the safe and familiar path, or I could say yes, could choose the excitement and passion and recognition that Damian represented. I typed back, yes, I'd like that. As I hit send, I felt like I was crossing a bridge that would burn behind me, but I also felt more alive than I had in years. Saturday's dinner with Damian was everything I'd imagined it would be. He took me to an exclusive restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the waiters knew his name, and the wine list required a sommelier. We talked about everything: business, philosophy, travel, dreams. He made me feel sophisticated, important, like I was exactly where I belonged. You're wasted in project coordination, he told me over the second bottle of wine. You should be running your own division, making strategic decisions, building something from the ground up. Is that an offer? I asked, feeling bold. It could be. I'm planning some major expansions next year. I need someone I trust, someone brilliant, someone who isn't afraid to take risks. The conversation felt charged with possibility, not just professional advancement, but a whole new life. A life where I was valued, where my ambitions were celebrated rather than tolerated. After dinner, he walked me to his car, and this time, when he kissed me, I didn't think about Owen or marriage or consequences. I just kissed him back with all the passion and excitement I'd been suppressing. "Come home with me," he whispered against my lips. I almost said yes. I was so close to crossing that final line, to making a choice that would change everything irreversibly. But something held me back. Maybe it was Eva's drawing of our fractured family. Maybe it was the memory of Owen bringing me flowers at the office. Maybe it was just the last vestige of the woman I used to be, before ambition and validation became my primary drugs. "Not tonight," I said. "I need a little more time." Damian looked disappointed but nodded. "I understand. But Leira, don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't stay open forever." Sunday passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. Owen and Eva were due back that evening, and I knew we were going to have to make some decisions about our future. I spent the day cleaning the apartment obsessively, as if organizing our physical space could somehow organize the chaos in my head. They arrived around 6 p.m., Eva chattering excitedly about her weekend with my parents and Uncle Mike. "Grandma taught me how to make cookies," she announced, running to show me a container of slightly lopsided sugar cookies. "And Grandpa let me help in his garden." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, hugging her close. She smelled like my mother's perfume and childhood innocence, and I felt a stab of guilt about how little attention I'd been paying to her lately. Owen was quieter, unpacking his bag with methodical precision. After Eva went to bed, we found ourselves sitting across from each other at the kitchen table again, the scene of so many difficult conversations lately. "How was your weekend?" I asked. "Illuminating," he said. "I had a lot of time to think." "About what?" "About us. About what I want. About what I'm willing to accept." Something in his tone made my stomach clench. "And what did you decide?" Owen pulled out a folder I hadn't noticed before. "I've been doing some research about divorce procedures, custody arrangements, asset division." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Divorce? Leira, we both know this marriage is over. The only question is whether we're going to keep pretending it isn't." "It doesn't have to be over. We could try counseling." "Could we? Are you willing to cut ties with Damian? Are you willing to prioritize our family over your career ambitions? Are you willing to actually work on rebuilding what we had?" I opened my mouth to say yes, but the words wouldn't come. The thought of giving up Damian, giving up the recognition and excitement and possibility he represented, felt like suffocating. Owen saw my hesitation and nodded sadly. "That's what I thought." "Owen, please, it's not that simple." "It is that simple. You've made your choice. You chose him over me, chose your career over our family, chose excitement over commitment. I can't compete with that, and I'm tired of trying." He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. "I've already consulted with a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce." "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. I want joint custody of Eva, and I want a fair division of our assets. I'm not going to try to hurt you financially, but I'm also not going to let you walk all over me anymore." I stared at the papers, my mind reeling. "When?" "Tomorrow. I wanted to tell you first, as a courtesy." "A courtesy? Owen, this is our marriage, our family." "No, Leira. This was our marriage. What we have now is just two people sharing space while you pursue a relationship with another man." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to fight, to beg Owen to reconsider, to promise I'd change. But another part of me, the part that had been intoxicated by Damian's attention and the promise of professional success, felt almost relieved. Maybe this was what I wanted. Maybe this was the push I needed to finally choose the life I really desired. Monday morning, I threw myself into work with renewed intensity. If my marriage was ending, at least I had my career success to sustain me. Damian noticed my mood immediately. "Everything okay? You seem tense." "Owen's filing for divorce," I said, the words feeling strange on my tongue. Damian's expression shifted to something I couldn't quite read. "I'm sorry. That must be difficult." "It is, but it's also freeing in a way. Now I can focus on what really matters." "And what's that?" "My career, our partnership, building something significant." Damian smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course. Though you should know, I've been meaning to talk to you about some organizational changes we're implementing." Something in his tone made me look up sharply. "What kind of changes?" "We're restructuring the project management division, bringing in some outside talent to handle the bigger accounts." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean for my role?" "You'll still be valuable to the team, of course, but we need people with more senior experience for the executive-level client relationships." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "Damian, I just saved the Peterson account. I've been instrumental in our biggest successes this quarter. And you've done excellent work. But Leira, there's a difference between being a strong individual contributor and being ready for senior leadership." The dismissal in his voice was like a slap. This was the same man who'd been calling me brilliant and fearless just days ago. "Is this because of what happened between us? Because I said I needed more time?" Damian's expression grew uncomfortable. "This is purely a business decision. Personal relationships shouldn't factor into professional choices." But I could see the truth in his eyes. I'd been useful when I was available, exciting when I was forbidden fruit. Now that I was actually free, now that I came with complications like divorce proceedings and emotional baggage, I was suddenly less appealing. The rest of the week blurred into humiliation and dawning clarity. Divorce papers filed. Owen moved out. Eva kept asking why Daddy wasn't home, and I had no good answer. At work, the restructuring accelerated. My projects shifted to others. I was still employed, but no longer essential. The final blow landed Friday night at the company's major investor dinner. I arrived polished, ready to shine. Halfway through a conversation with a potential client, the process server approached. "Leira Pontel, you've been served." The envelope held more divorce papers, financial disclosures, custody details, but the timing mattered most. In front of my boss, colleagues, and industry leaders, my marriage imploded publicly. Silence fell. Eyes turned. My face burned. Damian appeared, asking if I was okay. His concern felt rehearsed. I fled to the lobby, trembling. There sat Owen, calm in his best suit. "You planned this," I said. "Yes." "You had me served here in front of everyone." "You humiliated me publicly, kissing another man while I watched. You made me look like a fool. Did you think there'd be no consequences?" I stared at the man I'd married for 8 years and saw a stranger, harder, strategic. "The papers include everything," he continued. "Bank records, credit cards, phone logs, texts you left on our shared cloud. I've been documenting since the first public kiss. You spied on me. I protected myself and Ava." "Owen, we can still—" "No, you want the stability I provide and the thrill of an affair. Tell me, are you willing to quit your job, end things with Damian, and rebuild our marriage?" I couldn't say yes. We both knew it. "That's what I thought." He stood. "Oh, and check your employment contract. The morality clause prohibits supervisor-subordinate relationships. HR got an anonymous tip this morning, along with office security footage." He walked away. My marriage was over. My career hung by a thread. My reputation shattered. I stood alone in the lobby holding divorce papers, while upstairs whispers spread. My phone buzzed. Someone had posted about the scene. The story was going viral. I thought about calling someone to tell me I was the victim. But the lie wouldn't come. I had chosen this. Applause over love, excitement over commitment, ego over family. Owen hadn't been cruel, he'd been thorough, and his revenge was complete.